40,000 years ago, Europe was home to at least two kinds of human. One disappeared from the archaeological record. For more than a century, the explanation seemed simple. We were smarter, we were more adaptable. We arrived and the Neanderthals lost. Then their bones began to speak. A genome revealed that part of them was still alive inside millions of people. A mathematical model suggested that a population could disappear without a final battle, simply by being absorbed into a much larger one. And in 2026, DNA recovered from some of the last Neanderthals in northwestern Europe made the story even harder. Those individuals had not recently mixed with Homo sapiens at all. Some Neanderthal groups may have blended into us, others may have remained separate until the end. So what actually happened to them? Did we destroy the Neanderthals? Did the climate finally defeat them? Or did they vanish in several different ways at once? In 2010, a few fragments of ancient bone produced one of the most unsettling discoveries in the history of human evolution. For years, geneticist Svante Pääbo and his colleagues had been trying to recover Neanderthal DNA. The task seemed almost impossible. After death, DNA breaks apart. It becomes contaminated by bacteria, soil, excavation, and the hands of every person who touches the bone. A Neanderthal genome had spent tens of thousands of years becoming almost unreadable. But fragment by fragment, the team reconstructed enough of it to make a comparison. They placed Neanderthal DNA beside the genomes of living humans, and the extinct population was not completely absent. Many people living today, especially those with ancestry outside sub-Saharan Africa, carry roughly 1 to 2% Neanderthal ancestry in their nuclear DNA. The fragments are not identical in every person. Together, living humans preserve a much larger mosaic of the Neanderthal genome. The discovery changed the question. Before 2010, people asked, why Neanderthals went extinct? After 2010, scientists had to ask something stranger. How extinct can a population be if part of it is still living inside another one? To answer that, we have to resist the most attractive explanation. There was probably no single moment when the Neanderthals disappeared, no final battle, no last winter that killed every remaining group, no clean line separating them from us. Their disappearance appears to have been a long regional process, shaped by climate, population size, isolation, competition, migration, and interbreeding. Different groups may have reached the end in different ways, but before we examine those endings, we need to understand who was disappearing, because the old image of the Neanderthal was built to make our survival feel inevitable. The word still suggests something hunched and slow, a creature that grunted instead of speaking, a failed human waiting to be replaced by a better one. The evidence does not support that story. Recognizable Neanderthal populations lived across Europe and Western Asia from at least around 430,000 years ago until roughly 40,000 years ago. That is a span almost impossible to hold in the mind. Every city, kingdom, written law, machine, and empire belongs to a tiny fraction of that time. Neanderthals endured repeated glacial cycles. Forests expanded and retreated. Grasslands moved. Temperatures changed. Animals migrated or vanished from entire regions. Neanderthal populations followed those changes across an enormous territory. Their bodies carried adaptations associated with cold environments. They were generally shorter and more heavily built than recent humans. Their limbs were relatively compact. Their faces and nasal cavities differed from ours in ways that may have helped condition cold, dry air. For hundreds of thousands of years, Neanderthals made complex stone tools. They controlled fire. They hunted large animals at close range. They selected materials, planned movements, and transmitted knowledge across generations. At Cueva de los Aviones in Spain, archaeologists found perforated shells and mineral pigments dated to about 115,000 years ago. Modern humans had not yet established themselves in Europe. The objects do not tell us exactly what Neanderthals believed, but they show deliberate modification and the use of materials that had no obvious value as food or weapons. At Shanidar Cave in Iraq, several Neanderthal skeletons preserve severe injuries that healed during life. One individual survived major physical impairments for years. We cannot reconstruct every act of care from bones alone. But survival after disabling injury strongly suggests that other people provided food, protection, or assistance. The famous idea that one Shanidar burial contained flowers remains debated. Pollen was found near the body, but researchers still disagree about how it arrived there. That uncertainty matters. The strongest story is not the one that sounds most beautiful. It is the one the evidence can carry, and the evidence already carries enough. Neanderthals were not mindless survivors. They were humans with technology, social bonds, regional traditions, and the ability to persist through enormous environmental change. Their disappearance cannot be explained by saying they were simply too stupid to continue. So the first serious theory focused not on intelligence but on competition. Homo sapiens entered Europe in repeated movements. By at least 45,000 years ago, modern humans were living at high latitudes in parts of the continent. In some regions, Neanderthals and Homo sapiens overlapped for thousands of years. They used some of the same landscapes. They hunted many of the same animals. They needed shelter, fuel, stone, water, and access to seasonal routes. Even without organized warfare, two populations using similar resources can place pressure on each other. A larger network can recover from failure more easily. If one group loses hunters, another group can provide partners, information, or new members. If a local food source collapses, distant connections can reveal another route. If a small population becomes isolated, a few deaths can matter far more. Modern humans may have had broader social networks in some regions, exchanging materials and information across greater distances. That would not make every Homo sapiens individual smarter than every Neanderthal. It would make the population more resilient, but competition alone creates a problem. If modern humans simply arrived and eliminated an inferior rival, the archaeological record should look more like a rapid replacement. Instead, the transition unfolded at different speeds in different places. Careful radiocarbon modeling has estimated several thousand years of overlap in parts of Europe. That is longer than many civilizations have existed. Long enough for groups to avoid one another, long enough to compete, long enough to exchange objects or knowledge, and long enough to have children together. This is where the DNA changed everything. The Neanderthal ancestry carried by living people could not have appeared without interbreeding. At some point, Homo sapiens and Neanderthals met closely enough for children to be born. Those children survived. At least some of them had children of their own. The contact was not limited to one isolated event. Genetic research published in 2024 found evidence for multiple episodes of gene flow between modern human and Neanderthal populations across deep time. The direction was not only Neanderthal into Homo sapiens. Earlier modern human populations also contributed ancestry to Neanderthals. Later, during the major expansion of Homo sapiens into Eurasia, another important mixture occurred. Some early modern human genomes from Eurasia carry long stretches of Neanderthal DNA. Long stretches matter because recombination breaks inherited DNA into smaller pieces with every generation. A very long Neanderthal segment means the Neanderthal ancestor was recent. In several early Homo sapiens individuals, the Neanderthal ancestor may have lived only 4 to 10 generations earlier, not in a mythical beginning, not hundreds of generations away. Close enough that the family connection may still have existed in living memory. This makes the old picture of two species meeting only as enemies impossible to defend. Their interactions must have varied. Some encounters may have been violent. Some groups may have avoided each other. Some may have exchanged people. Some formed families. But interbreeding created a new explanation for disappearance. Perhaps Neanderthals were not completely exterminated. Perhaps they were absorbed. In 2025, researchers published a mathematical model exploring exactly that possibility. The model began with a simple imbalance. Neanderthal populations were small. The expanding Homo sapiens population was much larger. Now imagine repeated, small movements of modern humans into Neanderthal communities. Not an army, not a single invasion. A few people at a time, a partnership, a child, another movement decades later. Repeated across many generations, the model showed that sustained gene flow from a much larger population could produce near-complete genetic substitution over approximately 10,000 to 30,000 years. It did not require Homo sapiens to possess a dramatic biological advantage. It did not require one catastrophic event. The mathematics alone could gradually reduce the proportion of distinctly Neanderthal ancestry until the population became genetically dominated by incoming Homo sapiens ancestry. Under that model, disappear because every individual died without descendants. Their descendants continued, but the distinct population identity dissolved. It is a powerful possibility. It is also not the whole answer. Because in 2026, researchers published genome-wide data from some of the last known Neanderthals in northwestern Europe. These individuals lived during the period when early modern humans were already present elsewhere in Europe. If absorption was occurring everywhere, their genomes should contain clear stretches of recent Homo sapiens ancestry. The researchers did not find them. Across the late Neanderthal genomes they analyzed, there was no convincing evidence of recent modern human introgression. The contrast was striking. Every currently sequenced early modern human in Eurasia from before 40,000 years ago carries Neanderthal ancestry. Some had very recent Neanderthal ancestors, but the late Neanderthals in this northwestern sample did not show the reverse pattern. Gene flow was asymmetrical. One possible explanation is that children from mixed families were more often incorporated into Homo sapiens groups. Another is that the major interbreeding events happened elsewhere, before those modern human populations moved deeper into Europe. Or these northwestern Neanderthals may have remained connected to other Neanderthal groups, while largely separate from Homo sapiens until close to their disappearance. The important point is that absorption was not uniform. Some Neanderthal ancestry entered our populations, but some of the last Neanderthal communities remained genetically distinct. They did not all become us. Some simply ended. The same 2026 genetic study also complicated another popular explanation. Neanderthals had smaller, effective populations than Homo sapiens. Some genomes show long stretches of inherited DNA that indicate mating between close relatives. Small populations can accumulate harmful mutations because natural selection has fewer individuals to work with. Earlier research suggested that this genetic burden may have reduced average reproductive fitness. It was tempting to imagine a species slowly weakening generation after generation until collapse became inevitable. But the new genomes from northwestern Europe did not show a simple final decline. Those late groups displayed more connectivity and genetic diversity than some Neanderthal populations from the Altai region. The researchers did not find evidence that steadily increasing inbreeding or genetic load was the primary force driving their disappearance. That does not mean demography was unimportant. A population can be vulnerable without every individual becoming biologically weaker. Small numbers create risk by themselves. A few failed births matter more. A local epidemic matters more. The loss of one route, one hunting territory, or one connected group matters more. Demographic weakness is not a dramatic killer. It is a reduction in the number of mistakes a population can survive. And this brings us to the newest large-scale explanation. In 2026, Ariane Burke and colleagues used habitat suitability models and geographic network analysis to compare Neanderthal and Homo sapiens populations across Europe between roughly 60,000 and 35,000 years ago. They did not search for one universal cause. They asked how suitable regions shifted with climate, how those regions connected to one another, and where the two populations were likely to overlap. The result was not a simple map of one species pushing another out. Both populations were affected by environmental change. Their potential habitats overlapped, but subtle differences reduced the likelihood that direct competition for identical resources explains everything. The more important difference was regional structure. In some areas, especially parts of southeastern Europe, the connections between favorable Neanderthal regions were relatively weak. A group living inside a fragile network can survive ordinary years. The danger appears when several pressures arrive together. A cold shift moves prey. A neighboring population disappears. A route between groups becomes unusable. Births fall for a few generations. A larger human population enters the region. Any one of those pressures might be survivable. Together, they can break the connections that allow a small population to recover. In Western Europe, the arrival of Homo sapiens may have added pressure where the ranges of the two populations overlapped more directly. In Southeastern Europe, isolation and weak regional connectivity may have made Neanderthal groups more vulnerable to demographic accidents and possible genetic absorption. The model's most important conclusion was that replacement was not uniform. Climate did not affect every region in the same way. Competition did not occur with the same intensity everywhere. Interbreeding did not mix every population equally. There was no single Neanderthal ending. There were many local endings. A community could disappear after losing contact with neighboring groups. Another could merge into a Homo sapiens population. Another could survive for centuries in a refuge, then fail after a sequence of ordinary crises. Another might be displaced from the best hunting territory without a single violent encounter. The last Neanderthals were not necessarily standing together at the edge of one final catastrophe. They were scattered across a continent, separated by mountains, rivers, climate zones, and distance. Some may never have known that other Neanderthal groups had already vanished. There was no word for extinction, no map showing their shrinking range, no way for one isolated community to understand that it might be among the last. Imagine a group living in a valley near the end. They would not experience extinction as a scientific event. They would experience fewer visitors, a familiar camp that remained empty, a route no longer used, a winter with too few hunters, a child who did not survive, a stranger arriving from a different human population, a partnership that carried one lineage into another group. Then eventually, no one returned. We cannot know which of these moments belonged to the final community. We do not know where the last Neanderthal lived, or whether that person understood that their world was ending. But the evidence allows us to answer the central question more honestly than before. Why did Neanderthals disappear? Not because they were stupid, not because one winter killed them all, not because Homo sapiens won a single prehistoric war, and not because every Neanderthal simply transformed into a modern human. They disappeared because small, regionally different populations faced a combination of pressures they could no longer absorb. Climate repeatedly changed the geography of survival. Fragile population networks limited recovery. Larger Homo sapiens populations increased competition and movement across the landscape. Interbreeding carried some Neanderthal ancestry forward, usually into expanding modern human groups. And communities that remained separate eventually disappeared from the archaeological record. Some were absorbed, some were replaced, some were isolated, some ended without leaving descendants we have yet identified. The answer is not one cause. The answer is accumulation. Pressure after pressure, region after region, generation after generation, until a human population that had survived for hundreds of thousands of years no longer existed as a distinct people. Now return to the fragment of bone in the laboratory, to the damaged molecules that Pebo and his colleagues reconstructed. The genome did not deliver a simple victory story. It erased the clean border between survivor and extinct. The people who remained did not replace the Neanderthals without touching them. They met them. They competed with them. They learned the same landscapes, and sometimes they formed families with them. Neanderthal ancestry still influences parts of human biology, including aspects of immunity and other traits. But that inheritance should not be mistaken for the survival of Neanderthal societies. Their communities, traditions, relationships, and ways of understanding the world disappeared. Genes can cross an ending that cultures cannot. That may be the most unsettling part of the story. Neanderthals are not completely gone, but they are not still here in the way they once were. They survive as fragments inside a population that outnumbered them, expanded beyond them, and eventually occupied every region they had called home. So why are you still here when they are not? Not because your ancestors were simply stronger. They belong to a larger and more connected population, one capable of absorbing losses, people, knowledge, and even other human lineages. The Neanderthals had survived almost everything the Ice Age world could do to them. What they could not survive was everything arriving together. And the evidence is still inside you. If this story changed the way you see the boundary between us and them, leave a like to support the video. The Neanderthals did not simply vanish. Their communities ended, their traditions fell silent, and the human world they had built disappeared with them. But extinction did not erase every trace they left behind. Somewhere in the encounters that shaped our species, part of their story became part of ours. So the next time you look at a Neanderthal face, remember this. You are not looking at a failed version of humanity. You are looking at another human world, one that endured for hundreds of thousands of years, one that met our own, and one that left part of itself behind, not only in caves, not only in bones, but in us.